I stared at her for a few minutes, not quite sure I understood what she was saying. What do you mean? We threw it into the snow. It sank into that white powder in the backyard, and we knew that it would get wet and the earth would reclaim it, and my sister looked guilty for a moment before standing up and reaching into her purse. I was a little bit afraid of what she might pull out. It was impossible. There was no way. She still had that tape. We'd both been so utterly traumatized by what we had seen that I doubted either of us would go looking for something like that again. It appeared, however, that I've been wrong. She'd gone looking for it. She'd found something that still horrifies me to this day. Laughing Place was the last of the mail-order VHSs that I ever watched. I was 13 when it came. My sister was 11, and I'd started making friends outside the house. I was getting ready to go into middle school, and sitting around and watching kid shows on the VCR didn't really appeal to me anymore. I still watched Castor's Creek sometimes, but the rest of it seemed childish. It was the last VHS tape I remember getting in the mail, and it had been waiting for us when we got home from school. Mom had left it sitting on the kitchen table, and it sat there with a note. "I'll be back later. There's a casserole in the fridge. You two can watch a movie and eat dinner, but be in bed by 9. Love, Mom." My sister said that she'd set the oven if I would set the table. I put out the plates and the cups. She heated up the dinner, and when it was ready, we sat down to watch whatever this new VHS tape was. The card in the front said it was called Laughing Place, and both of us agreed it was a pretty weird name for a show. By this point, we were almost used to the strange quality of these tapes, but nothing could have prepared us for what we were about to see. It wasn't a TV show. Not really. It was more like a movie, and we only made it to about 30 minutes in before I begged her to turn it off. Sometimes at night, I still wake up hearing the laughter on that day, and it's one of the few childhood fears that I've retained. I think it was supposed to be a TV show. The premise was this group of kids would go into the woods when they were having a bad day or having an argument and find a cave that was called the Laughing Place. The cave was supposed to make them feel better, change their day for the better, but what we got was almost Blair Witch-like in its quality and composition. I watched the Blair Witch once, and while the friends that I saw it with thought it was campy and a little over the top, I remember shaking in my boots as I watched those three go into the woods. Whether they knew it or not, those three were going to their own laughing place. The tape came out of her purse, and it was the same as it had been when we took it out of the mailing envelope. How can this be? How can you have this tape? My sister said nothing, but the tape was very clearly the one we had watched that night as we sat around the coffee table and drank Kool-Aid and terror in equal parts. It started out with 4 kids who were playing in a park. They were playing Foursquare, but they seemed to have gotten into a squabble over whose turn it was to make the first move. The squabble turned into a shouting match, and when one of them threw the ball down a little harder than they should have, it went into the woods, and the 4 kids went after it. They were still arguing about whose fault it was, and who was going to go get it, and who was going to go first when they got back. But all of a sudden, the footage got grainy, and we got a cam shot of an adult walking into the woods as he spoke on what must have been an ancient cell phone. There were 4 kids hiking with a group of adults. The woods looked like the same woods the kids had run into, and it seemed like whoever was operating the camera was not having a good time. "We're going to the site." No, it's for this new kids show. Janie says that she and Mark found this cave in the woods that we just have to use for the show. Yeah, no, she says it really laughs, and it's just what we need for the show. She says it'll save us a bundle on set design and having to hire someone to do the voice for the cave. Yeah, I think she and Mark were probably a little too done up on mescaline and thought they found a laughing cave. No, they actually have video footage of the cave laughing, but it's probably just the wind going over a hole or something. Yeah, management is pretty adamant that they want us to go out there. I guess they were really impressed with the video. No, we'll be back Monday. Yeah, He's been walking and talking the whole time, and his feet are crunching on the leaves and sticks as he goes. He's cut off suddenly when he trips into a hole, and the last thing we hear before it returns to the show is him cursing loudly and the camera going off. The show came back, and the kids find their ball at the mouth of this weird cave in the middle of the woods. The cave is cool. The mouth is easily 15 feet high, and it goes into the ground like the gaping maw of some hungry monster. As one of them picks up the ball, the cave laughs uproariously, and the kids look at it in fear. I don't know if that was their stage direction, but all of them look at the cave like it might try to hurt them or something. "What's the matter, kids? Have you never seen a laughing place before?" The kids look at each other, clearly thinking they're losing their minds, and then the cave laughs again, and all the kids start laughing too. One of the kids, a sandy-haired boy of about 8, asks the cave what a laughing place is, and the cave laughs like it's the most hilarious thing it's ever heard. "What's a laughing place? Why, that's where you go when you're feeling down, and you need to remember the good times. It sounds like you kids need to remember some good times, too. Come on, kids, let's laugh and remember the blessings that we hold so dear." The cave starts laughing its non-existent head off, and the laughter must be infectious because all the kids start laughing and rolling on the ground as well. Their ball is forgotten, but they don't seem to mind. There's tears running out of their eyes, and all of them look like they might be about to have a stroke right there in the dirt. I remember thinking when I was a kid that they all looked like they were choking, and as the camera pans in on one of the kids, he really does seem like he's having trouble catching his breath. There's some talking offset, and some of the adults come into the scene as they seem to be trying to get the kids to stop laughing. The cave just laughs on and on like it's having the time of its life, and when the camera finally cuts, we can still see the kids rolling on the ground laughing. It cuts back on after a minute, and it's the same cameraman from earlier. He's back to talking on his cell phone, and I have to believe that none of this is planned. The phone calls are always so candid, and it seems like maybe he's keeping a tight grip on his camera in between shoots. "Look, Mark, I don't give a shit what kind of thing you think this is. I need to know what the hell is going on here. No, it's not just some kind of sound coming out of the cave. There's a voice in that cave, and I need to know who it is." "Why? Oh, no particular reason. Just Ashton Spade won't stop laughing, and we're having a really hard time getting him to take a breath to keep living. Is that a good enough reason for you, Mark?" No, we can't get an ambulance out here, and we're 5 goddamn miles into the woods. We're gonna have to carry him out, and he's rolling around and convulsing like he's having a goddamn stroke. I don't know what the hell is going on here, Mark, but you... He stops then, as somebody calls out to him. His name is Grady, apparently, and he looks off camera as somebody tells him that the kid in question is nowhere to be found. "What do you mean he's nowhere to be found? He was rolling on the ground and having a fit. Are you telling me you can't find a laughing kid?" The audio is a little garbled, but I'm guessing that they told Grady that the kid had vanished or something. I've got to go handle this, but if this is some kind of sick joke or a setup, then you better be ready to take the brunt of the lawsuit. You know how the Spaders are about their son. They're the most sue-happy bunch of assholes I've ever met. All right, I'll be in touch. Bye. He hung up the call, but he didn't turn off the camera. What Mr. Grady did was move off into the woods as he began looking for the boy. He was calling for Ashton as he searched through the dark woods, but it was what you could hear in the background as he called that put my hair up. You can hear the sound of that laughing cave as it laughs and laughs and laughs. It had been highly upsetting in the daytime, but at night it was like sleeping in a haunted house and hearing someone call your name. It went on like that for 5 minutes, but it felt like much longer. Finally, Grady seems to remember that he had turned the camera on, or noticed that he had turned it on at all. He flipped it off, but when he came back, there was more laughter. The camera was pointed at 3 kids in sleeping bags, and all of them were chuckling quietly. They'd been tied into the sleeping bags with belts or duct tape, or a combination of the two, and they were wriggling around like they were having a fit as they stared at the roof of the tent. I'm recording this for my own safety. These 3 kids are safe, but we have yet to find Ashton Spader. I've also lost one of the camera guys that came out here with me. Brock went to look for Ashton in that fucking cave, and he hasn't come back. I think I know where Ashton is, but I don't know if I'm brave enough to go looking for him. In the morning, we're going home. If I have to drag all of these kids out here on my shoulders, I will. But I'm leaving these woods tomorrow. It was hard to hear him sometimes, because I could still hear the laughing place as it laughed on and on and on. It wasn't saying anything. It was just chuckling endlessly, like some sort of deranged cartoon character. I was never sure why they were so close to the cave, but maybe they weren't. Maybe the cave was simply too loud to be ignored. Whatever it was, the tape went off after his declaration, and then picked back up after a few seconds of static. He was standing outside the cave, and the laughing was almost deafening. I'm the only one left. I passed out for half an hour and woke up to find the kids had escaped. George is gone too. I have a pretty good idea where they've all gone. He's walking towards the cave now, and this is when I begin to hear the laughter is different somehow. It's not just the cave laughing anymore. It's the laughter of other people. It's children's laughter. It's male laughter. And it's that ceaseless cartoon laughter that comes from the depths of the laughing place. Do you think this is funny? Do you think you can just take my kids and my crew and just laugh about it? Give them back. You're gonna ruin everything. God damn it, you won't get me. I don't find any of this funny, and I'm not gonna play your games. He walks towards the cave, his steps slow and deliberate. And that was the point where I'd had enough. I hadn't said anything to my sister that night. I'd simply stood up and ejected the tape before taking it down to the back porch and throwing it out into the snow. The stone wasn't deep, not yet, but it would be deep enough to keep Mom and Dad away for the rest of the night. That night we had a blizzard, the first one of the season, and Mom had to stay with a friend while Dad slept in the bunkhouse at the factory he worked at. When I came back inside, my sister was crying. Her eyes were full of tears, and I held her and told her it was going to be okay. I had always assumed that she was crying because she was terrified like I was. But as she stood there with the tape in her hand, I thought maybe she'd been crying for a different reason. Maybe she'd been crying because she wanted to know how it all ended. Maybe she'd been crying because of the laughing place. I had held her for the rest of the night, letting her sleep in my bed with me as the blizzard raged outside. I'd woken up to find her gone, but when I looked for her, she was in her own bed. I tried not to think about the tape anymore after that, and I asked Mom not to bring us any more of the VHSs once she got home later. She asked if we had gotten a scary one, and I told her that it had upset us pretty bad, and I'd thrown it away. I don't know if any other tapes ever came in. Mom never brought them inside. Whether Laughing Place was the last, or she just started throwing them away after that, I have no idea. What I do know is that Laughing Place has haunted me ever since. And now, my sister was standing in our living room, holding it like some kind of totem. "Come watch it with me. We can finish it together. We should have finished it that night. Should have seen what happened to the children and the directors. You weren't crying because it scared you," I said as I suddenly realized what her tears had been about. "You were crying because you wanted to see the rest of it." "Yes. All my nightmares, all my tears. It was because I was afraid that I would never get to see the end of that show. That's what all these shows have been. They've all been glimpses into something truly terrible, something that all children must see. Childhood is always remembered as something wonderful and bright, but there's fear and terror there as well. The terror prepares you for what's to come later on. And when you told Mom that you didn't want the tapes anymore, it was all I could do not to scream. But how did you get it? It snowed so much that night. There was no way you could have found it." "I didn't have to. It appeared in my secret place. I was looking for something one day, years after you had gone to college and I was still at home, and I found it down there, along with Ashley's swing. I didn't put them there, and no one else knew about the place. In a way, that hiding place was my laughing place. In a way, it was my personal place that no one else could find. Now, don't you want to know how it ends? Don't you want to know what happens?" I was already backing for the door, the tape held up to the VCR like a threat. I didn't say anything. I just left our childhood home, got in my car, and drove away. I had dreamed about that tape for years, and I didn't want to know what sort of horrors lay at the end of it. That was 8 months ago. I returned home, went back to my life, but I never quite forgot about those tapes. I started dreaming about the laughing place again. I started dreaming about all of them. I dreamed about Castor's Creek and Roto Robots and Bobo's Circus and Holly's Hobbies and even Ashley's Swing, which I'd only seen a few times. They haunted me like ghosts. And eventually, I went looking for answers. The programs were pretty niche, but I found a couple of things that might sate the curiosity of those who followed the story from the beginning. Bobo's Circus. Bobo's Circus has no current information about any of the actors or the sets involved. The only thing I could find is an interview with the guy who allegedly played the strongman. He said the director was a big shot who'd been in television since the early 60s. He started out really liking the character of Bobo, but eventually came to hate him and took it out on him on set. He claimed that the beating scene was real, and also claimed that there were more episodes that got gradually more violent. He couldn't talk about the other episodes, not because of an NDA or anything, but because he was afraid of the director. The man had been dead for 40 years, but his name still held a lot of weight. The girl who played Clarabelle talked to someone once. She was going to tell a newspaper guy about what was happening, even though we warned her not to. The next day, they found her dead in an alley. I'm not sure if something's going to happen to me because I told somebody, but people deserve to know. He died a couple of days after that interview. He was run over by a car outside his house, and his body was left in the road for nearly an hour. Roto Robots. The studio that did Roto Robots was a small one out of eastern Canada. They'd planned to do 30 episodes, and the first 3 episodes and the last 3 episodes were actually at different ends of the release schedule. Episode 1, 2, and 3 were in order. Episode 4 was supposed to be episode 25, and the last 2 episodes were episode 29 and 30. There were 3 creators, and the 2 that were left admitted that the show got gradually darker as it went on. They blamed the 3rd director for this, saying they didn't agree with his direction, but he'd put a lot of money into the production, and he called most of the shots. We aren't sure what happened, but when the studio burned down one evening, it burned down with most of the unaired episodes and Steve inside. I'm sure a few episodes still exist. We sent out some test reels and things to certain organizations, but to my knowledge, 90% of the episodes burned up with their creator. Holly's hobbies. Holly was a recovering drug addict who was using the show to kick her habit. She'd taken to crafting during rehab and had fallen in with a sketchy producer when she got out. The show was like therapy to her, but her producer was not the sort of man that you wanted to put your life in the hands of. He had a reputation in the industry for being into all sorts of questionable things, and it was widely believed he had gotten Holly back on drugs and was using the show to control her. One of the cameramen claimed that Holly tried to kill herself on set during the last episode, but she was stopped and institutionalized. Castor's Creek. Castor's Creek was actually supposed to be the next Degrassi before the director went a little nuts. The weird part is the director of Castor's Creek was also the director of Bobo's Circus. He was younger when he was working on Bobo's Circus, but after looking at a picture of him, it was definitely him. He'd wanted to have one more hit before he retired, and because of it, he'd pushed his actors too hard. They'd decided to stand up to him, and he'd flown into a rage and nearly drowned his male lead in the creek. They stopped him, but it was kind of what kept him out of showbiz after that. He'd been forced to retire, and the industry had apparently breathed a sigh of relief. I did some digging, these tapes becoming kind of my obsession, and discovered he was also the sketchy director for Holly's Hobbies. That made me dig a little deeper, and I found out that he was the major backer in the studio that produced Roto Robots. The studio was hemorrhaging money, though, and it was widely believed that whoever set the fire had done so to recoup some of their losses. I suspected that he might be connected with Ashley Swing as well, but it turned out I was wrong. Ashley Swing. Ashley Mills was a grieving mother who had recently lost her son, David. The show was supposed to help her cope with the loss, but it only served to help her wallow in it. Ashley Swing was a public access show with illusions of being placed on PBS. When Ashley's depression became too much, she took her own life, and the show was cut short. Finally, Laughing Place. Laughing Place was the last attempt at relevancy for a director who was attempting to break back into the business. Grady Glenn, the man connected to so much tragedy, is already someone we've talked about. He had attempted to create a children's show after a few of his friends had found a mysterious cave in the forest that supposedly laughed. They'd had an idea for a show for kids, and this seemed to Grady like it would be a hit. So he'd taken a bunch of kids and some film crews out in the woods and decided to test just what the cave could do. It all went wrong, though, and he lost the kids and his crew and was never heard from again. Searching the woods netted them nothing. No one was ever found. They never found the cave either, but somebody must have found his footage. Turns out, Laughing Place was also our connection to Ashley's swing. Ashley's son David was one of the kids that had went missing, and it was finally what drove her over the edge, no pun intended. I know this seems like it was all just there for me to find, but what you're reading actually represents about 8 months of digging and vetting information from forums and articles. Like any bit of lost media, there are a lot of wild rumors and ghost stories that surrounded it, but what it boils down to is a man who mistreated his actors, potentially some of the people who were working for him, and then lost his life along with a bunch of kids out in the woods. He was a sick, depraved individual, and the world is probably better for his passing. It's been 8 months since my mom died, and my sister and I sat in our old house and watched movies. I haven't heard from her since that night. I called, but she never answers. Her ex-husband called me last week and asked if I'd heard from her. She hasn't been back to town, and she hasn't come to see the kids. I told him I haven't seen her since Mom's funeral. But I wonder if I'd find her sprawled on the floor of our old home. I don't think I'll ever figure out who sent those tapes. But I do know one thing. I don't think she really ever wanted to sell them. I think somehow the siren song of those videotapes called to her, and she answered. Those tapes brought her back to a time when she felt safe, and I'm a little afraid of what I'd find if I went up to my childhood home. I might be the last living member of my family, and I'd hate to see the snow reflected in her still open eyes as she lays across the carpet, doing what she truly loved, one final time. Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's show. If you think you might like a little more spooky in your life, then please feel free to click on one of the videos we have up here. Maybe look at one of the playlists if you're trying to get caught up. I know, there's so many videos on the channel. There's so many series that are going at the same time. Sometimes you just need a little refresher course, and I gotta say, I always enjoy the views. If you're not subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Maybe hit the bell so you don't miss anything. We upload a lot on this channel, so you won't want to miss a single story as they come out. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the Amazon link down there. There's quite a few books in my Amazon account. You can have a look, and if you'd like a signed copy, get up with me through email, and I'll be happy to work something out with you. Also, there's links to my Patreon, and you can become a member on the channel if you'd like your spooky a little bit early. Patrons and members on the $5 tier get their videos 12 hours early. That's in the morning as opposed to in the evening. Patrons at the $10 level also get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one. Speaking of my patrons, you should see them appearing right now. Just wanted to take a minute to say how much I appreciate all of you. Patrons, subscribers, however you give to the channel. I really appreciate everything you do, and it truly touches me that you have chosen to support the channel in this way. Well, that's enough for now. Till next time, Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.